This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
All right, Fact Check This daily. And I was thinking about talking about this or posting something about this late last week. And then I came across this article from Time magazine. And so I thought I would read the article from Time. It's actually a decently written piece. It's not very biased and doesn't really take a strong opinion one way or the other. It just kind of looks at what little was known at the time of its writing about the Luigi Mangione and UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson assassination. I don't know if assassination is the right word for that. Murder, nonetheless. So anyway, I was going to write a long post about my thoughts on the matter, and then I found the Time piece, and I thought, well, I will read this, and then I'll give my thoughts after I read it. So that's what today is. Might go a little bit longer than usual, but I say that my goal for these is like to be 10 minutes, max 15, and then I always end up going like 20 minutes, getting more in depth on stuff than I intend to. But I mean, it's fun. I won't be doing any more of these this week. I'll be out the rest of the week. So, need a little extra content today, yesterday as well. Here we go. The internet missed the point on Luigi Mangione. From the moment Luigi Mangione was revealed as the person arrested in connection with last week's murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, stories started spinning out about him on social media. Alibis posted by users who have manipulated photos of Mangione to suggest he was in different places at the time of the crime are breaking the internet. He's also become somewhat of an online sex symbol, with users claiming he's too hot to convict and mugshot hottie. Or mugshotty for those who know. After his arrest, he gained about 1,000 followers a minute on X as people poured through his past posts. Interesting. I'll get to that. Because shell casings at the scene of the shooting contained the words delay, deny, and depose, it was deduced long before Mangione's arrest that Thompson's murder was an act of revenge for a denied insurance claim. The phrase is interpreted to refer to tactics insurance companies use to avoid paying claims. It is also similar to the title of a book by legal professor Jay Feinman, which was critical of the health insurance industry. In the aftermath of the killing, some thought that this act, while extreme, would awaken a new wave of class consciousness, as people flooded social apps with their own grievances against insurance companies. Prior authorization is required for thoughts and prayers, read one viral post. But the truth is far from it. Most notably because social media doesn't have time to wait for answers on how a seemingly privileged, apparently not quite conservative, not quite liberal tech bro could have allegedly come to murder a top executive. In a world where we're constantly vying for likes, clicks, and reposts, public opinion often comes swiftly and ruthlessly, even when the reality is far more complex than our preconceived stereotypes will have us believe. Mangione doesn't exactly fit the bill of a cold-blooded killer. He comes from a prominent, wealthy family. He was valedictorian at his elite prep school. He earned undergrad and graduate degrees from an Ivy League university. He has no criminal record. Two of his fraternity brothers at the University of Pennsylvania said he never said anything concerning or extreme. A former classmate told CNN he is a totally normal guy. A former roommate described him as clearly a thoughtful guy. Among years of Mangione's Reddit posts, the only mention of an insurance company said an insurer other than Thompson's, Blue Cross Blue Shield, had actually covered his tests for irritable bowel syndrome, according to the New York Times. He also apparently wrote a 4-star Goodreads review of Industrial Society and its Future, a manifesto by Ted Kaczynski. That's the Unabomber manifesto. Highly recommend picking that up, giving it a read. The first dozen or so pages are incredible how on the nose Kaczynski was about the modern left. Anyway, I digress. While also loving The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. And everybody knows only environmentalists and commies like The Lorax. So, but also only anarchists and libertarians like Ted Kaczynski. So yeah, hard to peg this guy down, right? All of these disjointed facts make Mangione hard to characterize. Is he a nice guy or an extremist? Are his political views on the right or the left? We just can't tell. Perhaps it doesn't even matter. On many parts of the internet, people have already handpicked these facts to render their verdict. And Mangione is either a superhero or a villain. The problem is that none of this myth-making will get us any closer to the truth of what happened, or, in fact, what Mangione himself seems to be after, changing our country's appalling health system. The internet has always had a voracious appetite for spin. Social media apps are forums where people post hot takes on what's trending, rather than waiting for all the facts to emerge and considering all sides before arriving at careful conclusions. Everyone's in competition to come up with the most clever, witty, and even extreme posts to stand out among everyone else creating content about the same person, about whom, despite his digital imprint, we understand so very little. And that's one of the things and one of the reasons that a lot of times I don't talk about stuff as it's happening. I usually wait a couple days or even a couple weeks sometimes before I look at articles or actually talk about the hot topic things that are in the news, because while they're important, I didn't name this show Fact Check This so that I could just spout off my opinion. Now, I do spout off my opinion about a lot of things, but I try to be well researched and understand all of the angles on stuff before I do that. And that may be why I will never grow my show beyond more or less what it is now, because I'm not trying to get, viral clicks and likes and stuff for having the hot take on something. I want to objectively look at all of the angles on it and then discuss it in a way that is easy for everybody to understand, so that you get all of the information and you know what's going on in the world. So just a little insight into how I do this and why I do this. This is how the narratives we create on social media often become far from the reality of the situation, especially complex and confounding ones like this. Yet the more people see something repeated, the more they believe it, whether or not it's true. In psychology, this is known as the illusory truth effect. As a result, our society's popular understanding of events can become significantly detached from and even at odds with the facts that eventually emerge. These posts are also unlikely to solve any of the problems with our healthcare system. As we continue to watch this case unfold, the public has yet to have serious discussions about exactly what we can do to make sure everyone in America who needs healthcare can access it affordably, and that their claims aren't unreasonably denied, or how to solve the crippling medical debt held by 14 million Americans that causes many of them to cut spending on food, according to KFF polling. True, social media is a place where Americans can lodge our complaints, shout out compliments loudly, and even create community. But in the case of Luigi Mangione, it's also highly predictable. The internet has made snap assumptions about what's happening, oftentimes before we have real answers. We usually also fall short on solutions. Instead of reckoning with why so many Americans don't have access to the health care they need, we make content. But instead of making a meme out of Mangione, it would be a better idea to simply wait and learn. And I think to some extent that's what I've tried to do. I don't know that we've necessarily learned a whole hell of a lot in the week or so since all of this happened. And honestly, I don't know that we ever will. There are people who are of a more conspiracy mind who say that the University of Pennsylvania is one of those places, one of those campuses that the feds like to recruit from. And by recruit from, not necessarily meaning trying to get people to come work for the FBI in an official capacity, but recruiting subversive agents in society. Ted Kaczynski was one of those. He was like the number of recruiting of college students, typically very intelligent, somewhat well-off male students over the course of history is the more you learn about all of these different projects and experiments that they were running on these kids and are still running on these kids, I have no doubt. It makes you wonder. But also, for this kid, if you are of the conspiracy mind, it kind of fits the bill, right? I mean, affluent, well-off kid, very, this whole thing comes very out of the blue. How he could get caught the way he did, just everything about it seemed very, very strange, very suspicious. And then you have the other side of it, the, murdering an insurance CEO. And there were a bunch of posts that, talked about how he had a family and he went to, I think he went to like Iowa. Like he was just a, blue collar dude, went to the University of Iowa and, worked his way up to being a CEO and had a family. And what a swell, just really salt of the earth, great guy that he was. Except that also apparently he was, had like sold off quite a bit of stock and had done some other sort of shady stuff. And how much direct say does the CEO have in the company denying claims for this, that, and the other? I don't know. The whole thing is just really weird. And I think as the headline said, the internet missed the point on like this whole thing. The solution to the problems with our healthcare system are not going to come from murdering CEOs. Luigi Mangione is not the good guy for what he did. Whether or not the CEO of UnitedHealthcare was engaged in some shady bullshit, and whether or not United most definitely denies claims at almost double the rate of Blue Cross Blue Shield and most other insurance providers. But they're also living within and operating within this system that currently exists. And that's a twofold problem. Number one, there's way too much government overreach and government involvement and government regulation and manipulation of the entire healthcare industry as a whole, but specifically insurance because of Obamacare. Everybody that, on the left especially, that complains about how terrible our healthcare system is, how horrible the healthcare system is, how we need to fix it, how we need to do something about it. They never repealed Obamacare. You are still living with the fucking Affordable Care Act. This is your thing, right? This was like Obama's big win. This was what you all just like were hanging your hats on. It's so fucking bad that you've got some like not like upper middle class, like straight up like upper class Ivy League kid shooting insurance company CEO. That's how bad Obamacare has worked out. Are we still thinking this is a win? Why doesn't the left talk about, for all of their talk of how broken healthcare is, health insurance is, and how it needs to be fixed, why don't they talk about the fact that This is the direct result of Obamacare. And then the second side of that, and I've talked about this multiple times, the healthcare industry is the number one lobby in Washington, D.C. And the healthcare industry includes big pharma and the hospitals, but also the insurance companies. They are the ones who are pulling the strings on the regulation. They are the ones. Don't get it twisted, and don't think for one fucking second that these Congress people are writing these healthcare bills. It's being written by legal experts who are working for the insurance companies and the hospitals to make sure that they are able to minimize the amount of money that they have to pay, to minimize the amount that they have to cover, and to make as much as they can. And that's what Congress then rubber stamps. And then you get Obamacare. Why don't they talk about that? Because they know it's an abject failure. Like, okay, were there people who couldn't get some coverage on certain things if they were incredibly high risk when, before Obamacare? Yeah. For the same reason that if you've got a 16-year-old who's wrecked 3 cars over the course of 2 months, your car insurance company isn't going to cover that kid either, right? Because there are some things that are just like too high risk. And is that unfortunate for somebody on the healthcare side of it? Yes, absolutely. That fucking sucks. But there used to be insurance for that sort of stuff before it became the Leviathan that it is. You didn't used to have insurance to cover annual checkups and your prescription cold medicine and all of this other insane shit. But all of the incentives have been built to make it insurance, where you pay in and you pay in and you pay in, and then they try as hard as they can to pay out as little as possible. And all of the regulation and all of the litigation and all of the legislation all make that possible. If you want affordable health care for everybody, get the government and get the lobbies out of it. And let it be based on people's health and what people need. Hopefully, with the Trump administration and with RFK and some of the other people that are being put in prominent roles in this sector, maybe there will be a pushback on some of this. Maybe some of this will change. Will it change as a result of Luigi Mangione shooting Brian Thompson? I highly doubt it. I'm sure some people will talk about it, but I can't imagine that ends up being a real deciding factor in it. What it's going to have to come down to is getting the overregulation and the overreach by government out of not just the healthcare industry, but every industry out there. That's the only way you fix it. So we'll see what happens. As far as I'm not going to celebrate the kid for shooting somebody. That's not a positive solution. You do more harm than good with that. Anytime you're going to take an extreme action on something, think, does this do more harm than good for my cause? Like all the psychotic environmental activists that lay in the middle of the street and glue themselves to statues and throw paint on, paintings and take a chainsaw to sculptures and stuff like that. Like, what are you accomplishing? What is that helping? Maybe Luigi Mangione at least got some eyeballs and got some attention turned towards the healthcare industry. But I don't know that it moves the needle in the direction of actually fixing the problem. And that's what we need to be thinking about, is fixing the problem, not just becoming a new problem to call attention to the problem. I look forward to seeing how this all turns out. I think he's hired a defense lawyer. So, man, I really want to see what this kid has to say and what happens if this, I say if this goes to trial, because I can't imagine if he did actually have some, handlers who were coaxing him along for this, that he's allowed to escape without getting Epstein. But I mean, fuck, who knows? He might be from a rich enough, well-off enough family that they might be able to prevent that. I don't know. Jeffrey Epstein was rich as fuck too, and didn't prevent shit. So, but I mean, he didn't have family or anything on his side, and he also didn't have any public sentiment on his side, which this kid currently does. So, who knows? We'll see. I look forward to covering more of this going forward as the whole thing plays out and unfolds. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your day and week. I will get a regular episode out at some point this week. I just don't know when. I got to squeeze it into my schedule. I didn't get a chance to pre-record it, and it's the last week of school for the kids, and so everything is kind of batshit crazy. So we'll see. I will definitely get it up. I will definitely get one up sometime this week. Speaking of school, that's actually the topic of the next regular episode. It's a article from Newsweek. Is college still worth it? Many Americans say no. And there's also a follow-up from the LA Times. If you're rethinking college, think again. So you've got one that talks about young people not going to college. And then the other one comes at it from the other side of why you should still be considering going to college. So I'll be looking at both of those, and I'll definitely get those up later in the week. I just don't know when yet. Shooting for Thursday, but we'll see. Anyway, have a great rest of your day, week, all that good stuff. Go check out all the ones. If you're just seeing this for the first time, go check out all the other dailies that I've been doing for the last month and a half. Got some good stuff. Check out my Substack. Leave a comment. Share with your friends. All that good shit. And, I'll catch you next time. Later.